Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're delving into one of Robert Frost's most powerful and honestly heartbreaking poems. It's called Home Burial, and it's all about the silent, invisible walls that grief can build between two people who love each other. So let's start with this question, because it's really the engine of the entire poem, and it's something I think is tragically universal. What happens when a shared sorrow, the one thing that should pull two people together, actually becomes the very thing that drives them apart? All right, A Portrait of Grief. The central tension in Home Burial really comes from a simple but profound truth. There's just no single correct way to experience grief. And the poem shows us how these different, deeply personal styles of mourning can clash, creating a whole new layer of pain on top of the first one. What's amazing here is that we're not just reading a description of sadness. No, we're stepping directly into a moment of crisis. Frost structures this whole thing like a tense, real-time conversation, almost like a one-act play. It just reveals this deep and painful crack in a marriage right before our eyes. Okay, so let's dive into the story itself. A house divided by loss. Frost is an absolute master of using physical space to reflect an emotional one. And in this poem, the house itself becomes a landscape of their sorrow. The drama here doesn't kick off with a shout, but with this silent, totally loaded gesture. Her gaze out the window is basically an accusation. And when her husband sees what she's looking at, their child's grave, he doesn't just see his wife. He sees the fragile piece in their home that's about to absolutely shatter. And this gets us to the core of their tragedy, two worlds of sorrow. They are both drowning in the exact same ocean of pain, but they're doing it in these separate, isolated worlds. They're completely unable to reach, let alone rescue, one another. Okay, so from her point of view, his composure feels like a betrayal. It really does. She sees him talking about everyday things, she remembers him digging the grave with what looked to her like practical detachment, and she interprets his lack of outward mourning as a lack of love for their lost child. But then you flip it, and you look at his side. He is just utterly lost. He has no idea how to reach her. He believes that by doing the hard physical work of burying their child, he was showing his love and his grief in the only way he knew how. So he just feels completely shut out and totally unfairly judged. Just look at this breakdown. It's so tragic. Their perspectives are like perfect, tragic mirrors of each other. Where she needs words, he offers action. Where she sees insensitivity, he feels misunderstood. They aren't just disconnected. They are speaking two completely different languages of grief. And that's really it. This quote says it all. It's not just a disagreement anymore. It's a chasm, a huge canyon. They're in the same house, but honestly, they might as well be on different planets. So let's talk about the symbols of a silent rift. Because Frost doesn't just tell us they're distant, he shows us. He literally turns their home into a landscape of their grief, where every single object is just loaded with meaning. Just think about how these physical things create an emotional prison. That grave out there is a constant visible anchor to her sorrow. The window becomes a barrier between her and the world. The staircase itself becomes a symbol of the distance between them. And in the end, the house stops being a home and becomes a cage, trapping them together but in their own separate cells of suffering. And this is exactly why their pain just keeps getting deeper. It's a total communication breakdown. See, they are talking, but the words just don't connect. It's a complete failure to understand the emotional language behind the actions, and that misunderstanding, it becomes a second injury, almost as painful as the loss itself. And Frost adds another really fascinating layer to this. You gotta wonder, right? Is there conflict partly because of societal expectations? The wife, maybe she's expected to be the emotional heart of the home, and she feels her husband isn't meeting that need. And the husband, maybe he's expected to be strong and practical, and he feels like he's already done his part. It adds a whole other dimension. So, after all this raw and painful confrontation, where do we end up? Does this explosion of feeling lead to any kind of understanding, any kind of resolution at all? Well, the tension just reaches a breaking point. For her, the house has become synonymous with the grief that's trapping her. Her only solution, in this really desperate moment, is to flee, to just get out, to go anywhere else to escape the constant suffocating reminder of her loss. And this is what makes the poem so haunting. Frost gives us no easy answer. He doesn't wrap it up in a neat little bow. The husband pleads with her, but the poem just ends, right there, in that moment of crisis. We're left with this painful reality that sometimes some gaps just can't be closed. Some wounds are just too deep to heal together. So, ultimately, home burial serves as this really stark warning. It reminds us that even the deepest shared tragedy is no guarantee of shared understanding. Sometimes it does the exact opposite. It holds a magnifying glass to the cracks in a relationship's foundation until they just shatter. And this is the profound, really unsettling question that Robert Frost leaves us to ponder. It challenges all of us to think about the limits of love, the failures of language, and that deep personal silence that surrounds our greatest sorrows.